ourselves, why so many details? Why be so lengthy? Why limit? You can't take the girls, the daughters from the Canaanites, but you must go where my birthplace is. And if they don't want to come to you, you're not allowed to take him there. Let's review some major principles that we've been discussing the last few days and maybe better understand this chapter, which is comprised of 67 psukim, 67 verses, the longest story in the Chumash. And if the Torah is so lengthy, there must be some moral, ethical, significant reason why the Torah is so lengthy. Because the Torah, of course, by definition, is concise, short. So much is lengthened by the oral Torah, the Torah Shebal Peh. So,
wait, I have a question. Has the oral Torah ever been fully written down in all?
Yes, in the Gemara, in all the Midrashim. And you have to.
And it takes years to read it?
Yeah, you'll need a few years in yeshiva to get to it. We bless you for 120 years. Gentlemen, a very unique individual has to be appointed to do the job. We don't even know his name here in Chumash, in this section. All we know is that he has 3 quality traits. As we see in verse 2, he is number 1, Avdo, he's a special servant. He is Zekan Beito, he's an elder statesman, meaning he has tremendous wisdom, ingenuity. And number 3, Hamoshel B'chol Ashalo, he's his manager of his estate. We know that Avram is a very wealthy person, and he is a very top-notch manager. Only someone with these 3 traits can really go out and do a very job, which is what we call in basic terms long distance. To go out to Aram Naharaim, the Moledet, the birthplace of Avram Avinu. Obviously, we're talking about things that it's going to take just weeks of traveling. Who can really do the job? Question 1. Question 2, we're getting to the answer. Well, we asked 2 days ago, why not take local girls? Canaanites. What are you saying? They're idolaters? So too up in Aram Naharaim, where Avram comes from, they're all idolaters. What's the big difference?
I mean, and just to steelman that argument of those who argue in favor of Canaanite girls, Abraham converted Canaanites towards Judaism.
No, he converted people in Aram Naharaim, and now he's preaching, explaining, and passing on. But why not take any of the girls? Plus, number 2, he has 3 treaty members that are Canaanites, Aner, Eshkol, and Mamre, and maybe their daughters are decent daughters. Mm-hmm. We all remember Canaan is the son of Ham. Ham was cursed. So Ham and Canaan and all Canaanite entities are the opposite of what blessing stands for, are the opposite of spiritual connection to God. And we also mention in the Yom Kippur Torah reading of the afternoon, the Mincha service, when we read about all the adultery prohibitions in Vayikra chapter 18, we talk there about the ma'asim, the actions of the people in Mitzrayim, as well as the actions of the people in Canaan. Mm-hmm. And there, the Torah states, Ki ma'aseh Eretz Mitzrayim, like the actions of the people in Mitzrayim and Eretz Canaan, lo ta'asu. What's the matter with their actions? We talked about it briefly, the attributes of the people here locally, living here in Eretz Canaan: cruelty, anger, the lack of delicateness, people that are full of vengeance, anger, and maybe violence as well. When we're looking for a match, a mate for life, we talked about this on the bus ride. We don't look for someone like ourselves, but someone that can complement us. You can compliment her what she doesn't have, and she's going to compliment you what you do not have. Obvious, what is prerequisite number 1 is good character traits. Mm-hmm. That's the basis. It's not, the most gorgeous looking girl is the most important thing. Of course not. Beauty has importance, but the most thing is the beauty inside, the character traits. If she's going to be angry at you, throwing things at you.
Ralph, would you like a cup of tea?
Thank you. It's a reflection of yesterday, difficult day. I'm happy my knee is better. Thank God. My wife rubbed some rubbing oil on my knee. You need a good wife to rub some rubbing oil on your knee, and she did it twice. And I thought it was like, a grandmother's solution or something. And maybe it worked. With this morning, I was walking with 50% better than I was walking with.
Does it mention that in Eshetz Chayil that you need a wife to rub stuff on your knee?
It's understood. It's understood. Now, Canaan is cursed because of their terrible attributes. Therefore, there's no hope to find a woman. But it's not just any woman. We're talking here in these 67 verses, who's going to be the basis of the future Jewish nation? Who's going to be the future Am Yisrael? It has to come from the wife of Yitzchak, as it came from Avram and Sarah. And therefore, it's not just any type of woman. Okay, it works, it doesn't work, get a divorce. We're not interested in that. It has to be a person that will complement the attributes of Yitzchak Avinu. Now, I want to surprise you. Surprise and not surprise. Who is the Eved? You told me his name is Eliezer. Okay, all of you know what the Midrash says. So much for you, Moshe. So you know his name is Eliezer, even though his name is not here. So what? Eliezer is called Damasek. What is his name? What is his Damascus name? Damasek Eliezer. Why is he called Damasek Eliezer? It's a play on words. The Talmud says Damasek. Look at this, please. Damasek. Dole umashke. Damasek is not only is he from Damascus, but maybe he's really a Canaanite. And what he's doing, he is the student of Avram Avinu. He's Dole. He goes down into the well of wisdom of Avram, umashke, and he waters others. There's no finer, top-notch student of Avram Avinu other than this person called Damasek Eliezer. He's Dole umashke of Torat Rabbo, the Torah of his rabbi, of his teacher, and that is, of course, Avram Avinu. Now, if I were to tell you that this guy's a Canaanite, would you believe me or not? I want you to be aware of something wonderful that the Midrash says. We're talking about Canaan himself. What? Yeah. We're talking about Canaan himself, the grandson of Noach, the son of Ham. I thought he was a messed up person. I thought he was cursed. You're right. But you know what he did during the course of his life? 180 degrees. He refined his character traits. He did shuvah. He became such an unbelievable person that he became the servant of Avram Avinu. The top THE. Avram has many attendants, many servants. Yet he made such a change. He made such a revolution in his life that he began and he continued to cleave onto Avram Avinu, this type of total attachment. He changed his name from Canaan to Eliezer. What is the play on words in the name Eliezer? Please remind me. Eli, my God. Which is? Ezra. Help. My God, the help. My God is the help. In other words, he made a tremendous change in his life, not just routine, in the pnimiut, in his nefesh. And he became the greatest disciple of Avram Avinu. Now we understand why the Torah nicknames him Damasek Eliezer, which stands for Dole Umashke. He goes deep down, like you put a deli, like you put a bucket inside the well, goes all the way down, Umashke, and he waters others. On the background of this matter, we'll better understand that he proved to everyone and anyone that a person can change. A person can change. Machon, we said in the name of Rabbi Solmi Salant, that he would say that it's easier to learn all the Talmud, all the Shas and the Gemara, than changing your attributes. Things which are so deep, ingrained in one person, in his habits, in his actions, in his way of life, to change is much harder than even learning the abundance of Torah. So we can understand now why Avram would trust someone to do a shlichut, to do a mission so far away, because he knows the house of Avram Avinu. He certainly knows who is this Yitzchak, who right now, when we start reading next week's Parsha, open up, we know how old is Yitzchak. How old is he? 40 years old. He was 37 at the Akedah. That may be referring to that. He's 40 years old. Eliezer knows who this person is. We have yet to deal with. So why is his name hidden? Why is his name hidden? Yes.
So if Avram saw so personally that this can happen to someone, that they can completely change their midot,
Oh.
why does he not have the confidence that a Canaanite woman could also change? If we say that it's almost better for a person to go down and then come up, if they're maybe higher in quality, well, why wouldn't he want this
Very
for
good, very
Yitzhak?
It doesn't happen often.
Mhm.
It happens very rare. Your question is well taken. And therefore, he doesn't trust the women here. He doesn't trust even maybe the daughters of his comrades, Aner, Eshkol, and Mamre, even the guy that gave him advice regarding the circumcision. And now we have to add to the explanation to your question. I'm going to send far away, long distance to Aram Naraim. Why? I know in Aram Naraim, their ideas of polytheism are so great, many powers in the world, they don't see the unity of one God over everything. But it could be that there could be some good girls that have very good attributes. After all, who was born and bred there, yet came out of there? Avraham Avinu himself. And he knows part of his family could be good people, but they're messed up with their philosophy of life. But you know what? We said intellectually, philosophy of life, faith, that can change. You can study, you can prove, and people can change their thoughts of godliness in the world. But to change the midot is much harder. Therefore, he thinks there's a greater chance for someone coming out of his family area region, and she could have good midot, good character traits, much more than a woman here in Canaan. In Canaan. Yes, all right, Mr. Hirsch.
So the Canaan, he after changing his character, he became a servant of Abraham.
Wow, amazing. And his name was
No,
changed
I'm
to
asking.
domestic Eliezer. Yes.
So he became.
According to this particular midrash that I'm relating to, yes.
So he became servant of Abraham.
The servant of
The
Abraham.
servant, and he changed him to
Domestic Eliezer. Domestic Eliezer, which
where-
could mean Damascus, but here it doesn't have to mean Damascus. It
Is
means,
it on the board? Domestic.
yeah, domestic Eliezer. Dole umashkem Torah rabo. He is bringing others. Let's talk just for a short minute. Why is he only called Eved? Or throughout the chapter, Eved Avram, countless times. Eved or Eved Avram. Why is he called that? Why doesn't the Torah share with us his identity, his name? Okay. Noam. When Noam writes me, he says, Shalom, Rav Menachem, it's Noam writing that. He identifies himself. He's such a pleasant young man. But why isn't the Torah identifying him? There's an obvious answer. That he was so submissive of himself. He was so giving up of himself totally to the will of his master that when he gets this mission to do, with all the sensitivity, to go out and go to the right place and find the right girl and bring her back. And what happens if they start negotiating? And maybe that you have to use so much wisdom and so much integrity to do the things. And there's so many questions how to do this the right way. You know what he did? Avram, you want? That's what you want? I'm ready. What was the famous word Avram would say to God when he's ready to do a mission? What was the word? What was the key word he would say? Hineni. I'm ready. I'm ready and able.
So it's almost like he negates his own self.
He's negating his own personal matters, and he turns out to be the hero of this story. He's the hero. He's the one that the Torah is so lengthy, the instructions, what to do. And then when he meets, as you we've read the chapter, how he talks and what he does and how he prays. And then when he meets up with the future in-laws, the parents, the family, he reviews things. He cuts some things out. He makes a change in strategy. And for this, the Torah is so lengthy. And the Talmud comes and says, and Rashi brings it, Yafa sichatan shel avdei avot. So beautiful, so special is the sicha, the regular mundane discussion of the servants of the patriarchs, more than mitoratan shel banim, even more than the Torah of the children of a lot of the Torah laws we learn from a certain word, a certain letter, the way it's pronounced, the way it's punctuated. We learn many Torah or Taryag mitzvot particulars from a letter or from a word. And here are 67 verses to teach us the special, unique discussion and strategy of the servants of the patriarchs, even sometimes more is it than the Torah of the Banim.
David is also always referred to as the Oved. the Oved. David. Also, maybe
Yes.
if by not mentioning where he comes from, if we know that he's from Canaan, the reader might be biased and look past his midot and only focus on his origin.
But the Torah wants to tell us that he's special, he's
Right.
unique, he's submissive. Gentlemen, to execute this mission, you need someone that's very gifted, someone very special. And therefore, the Torah tells us immediately at the beginning of the chapter that he is a great speaker. He knows his place, he knows how to submit himself, but he's also an expert in the Torah of his rabbi. He's a zaken. Zaken, we said, doesn't only mean elderly person in age, but a zaken is someone like the Talmud says in Kiddushin, ze kana chokhmah, the one that acquired wisdom. He's the wisest in the house of Avram Avinu. He knows exactly what Avram is looking for, and he knows the significance and the depth of this mission. And number 3, he's a manager. He rules his entire house. He's an accountant, a bookkeeper, head of logistics of Avram's house, all these things. In other words, he's a man of ingenuity. He's a man of, he has resourcefulness. He knows how to go out and get things. These are the character traits that we're told immediately about Avram's great slave. And for that, Avram gives him more energy and makes him swear. Meaning, I know it's a 600-kilometer schlep. You might get tired in the middle, but the more you're going to take upon yourself through taking an oath in God's name, then the greater chances you're not going to come back empty-handed, or you're not going to just give up in the middle of the road. You have an oath in God's name. We mentioned the oath in God's name. Avram says, I want you to take an oath in the God of heaven and earth. And when he takes the oath in verse 6 and verse 7, he mentions the servant only the God of heaven. Avram Avinu, who lived in Aram Naraim and came to the land of Canaan, he saw God's revelation. He saw God's management in the world. He saw God as not just being a theoretical, abstract God up in heaven, but here down on earth, managing, moving me, making things go. That's why Avram relates to God as the Elokei Shamayim Va'aretz, the God of Shamayim Va'aretz. Here, the servant who is limited. He doesn't say that God is the Elokei Haaretz because he's going to Chutz La'aretz. And therefore, Avram describes his trip from Aram Naraim as the God of heaven and not the God of earth, because when he was still in Aram Naraim, he only saw God as an abstract God. You asked, and someone asked, what's the matter? If she wants to see him, if she's not willing to come, if this match that will be found by this Eved, she and her family says, we're not budging, we want to see him. So Avram gives clear restriction, limitation. No, he cannot go out. What did we say? What is the reason that Avram doesn't get a visa exit to leave the country? Why can he not? It's not a fear of corona, is it? No, because we just learned we're in the aftermath of the Akedah. The Akedah, Yitzchak turned into what? Into a new concept, as if he himself was a korban.
Oh, okay.
He was a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Do you know the laws of sacrifices? If something becomes sanctified, when we have a Beit HaMikdash, let's say as a type of korban, you're not allowed to take it out of a particular boundary, depending what the level of holiness is. There are things which are very holy, called Kodesh Kodeshim in the book of Vayikra we learn about, that cannot be taken out of the area of maybe even the Temple Mount. And there are things which are lighter holiness, called in Hebrew Kodeshim Kalim, Kal, lighter. Let's say the Paschal offering, the Pasach offering, and other Shlamim offerings, they can be taken out maybe to the in-walled city of Yerushalayim, but you can't take it to Kiryat Moshe. I know you like Kiryat Moshe, but in spite of the fact that doesn't work, okay? And therefore, Avram Avinu himself was like a Olat Timimah, a wholesome type of perfect offering. There's so much holiness, therefore his inner being doesn't work to be in Chutz La'aretz. Chutz La'aretz, no matter how nice Manchester and Gateshead might be in London, it's not the holiness of the land of Israel, okay? And therefore, you're not allowed to take Yitzchak out of Eretz Yisrael, not whatsoever. I want to now point out and show You can see the Midrashim talking about this. One of our great women scholars, Nechama Leibovitz, says in one of her articles, she lines up on one side the instructions and the wording exactly of Avram Avinu to the Eved.
The woman scholar, she a rabbinite or something? I've heard of
You
this.
can call whatever one. She can put a lot of our Talmudic scholars in her right pocket and her left pocket. Nechama Leibovitz is her name. We have the blue books, the color down blue down below. Very
I
educational.
think Rabbi Weinberg was just talking about her as well.
My
This year.
father-in-law
Yeah.
studied by her.
Yeah.
She's a great scholar. She prepared rabbis to be rabbis all over the country.
Oh,
Okay.
she's tzaddik.
She was, of course, a very righteous woman. She's very sharp.
Tzaddik.
She's a very sharp yeke from
Of
Germany.
Or
She was very shrewd, very smart, very God-fearing. So if you want to read one of her articles, you can see how on one side the instructions clearly are lined up from Avram to the servant. Yet when he gets there, he makes some alterations. You can see some of the strategy. I want to show you, for instance, open up the Pasuk Mem, verse 40. When he's already there and he's talking to the family.
Where?
Verse 40 of our chapter.
24.
Vayomer Eli. He's now sharing the lengthy story with the family. After meeting Rivka, chapter 24, Pasuk Mem, verse 40. This is after he found Rivka. He saw the unbelievable kindness that she did, that even young lads, all of us together, can do to water 10 camels. Okay? And look how he, with his ingenuity, introduces godliness to this house. Now remind yourself, this house is a house of idolatry. This is a house that they believe in many gods. But look how shrewd and how keen he is when he describes godliness to them. In verse 40, Vayomer Eli, okay, my master said to me, Yud Kei Vav Kei, God's name, Hashem, Asher talachti lefanav, that I went before him, Yishlach malacho itach, he's going to send his angel with you. V'tzliach darkecha, and your mission will be successful. V'lakachta isha livni, you'll take a wife from my son, u'mishpachti, from my family, u'mibeit avi. Look, what kind of God does the servant describe to Betuel and Levi? What kind of God? A God that went before me, as if the God of the world is a personal God of Avram Avinu. Is that how Avram Avinu described God to the servant prior to his exit to the mission? How did he describe God? Elokei Shamayim Va'aretz, the God of heaven and earth. I don't know if you know the expression, don't rock the boat. You've heard of that expression?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean, don't rock the boat? He's not getting into, as my father writes, Rabbi Horowitz, any theological descriptions of what God is, because it'll be in opposition to the ears of the listeners, these idolaters, and he doesn't want to rock the boat. I'm not coming here to shake up your beliefs right now and say you're wrong. You have a nothing God, and my master's God is the God of Shamayim and Aretz. He's not saying that. He's not going to get into a theological discussion of what's happening. Why does he do it? He's shrewd. He wants to play it down right now. He wants to try to do whatever he can do to sway the family, that she will be chosen, they'll agree, and that she'll be forthcoming. Point number one. Point number two. What does he say? When Avram Avinu gave the instructions to Eliezer, what does he say to the Evan? I'm sending you to my land and my birthplace to bring me a wife, correct? How does the servant describe? Does he say the land and the birthplace? No. What does he say here in this pasuk?
Mahabait Avi.
Where do you see? Which pasuk do you see this? Also in verse 40. Mi mishpachti umi beit avi. Did Avram Avinu, what did he tell? I want you to go to my family and my father's house? Or he said, go to my birthplace? What did he say? Go to where I was born.
Yeah.
Does he say, go to my father's house and my family? He changes. The Eved changes the instructions. What's his psychology? What is his psychology? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Avraham Avinu says, I'm sending you to my land and my birthplace. When now, after the servant finds Rivka, now talks with the family, he describes the instructions of his master, but he changes. He makes 2 alterations. He doesn't say something general, I was sent to Avram's land and to his birthplace. But he's saying, I was sent to my family and to my father's house. What does that show? What's different?
More
He knows
personal
that-
connection.
More personal
Yeah,
connection.
maybe he knows that this family's from Abraham's family.
Yes, he absolutely knows. But why is he interested in creating?
So he already
This order.
he already tried to create a personal relationship of
Oh.
Avram and God, and now he's extending that to the father's house.
Not about godliness, about maybe he wants to awaken or arouse in their hearts maybe some emotion of family or relatives, connection. How will they feel? Wow, we feel honored. He's our cousin, he's our family. So when he saw the situation enveloping to what it enveloped, and this is Rivka from the family of Abraham, he makes, with his ingenuity, a change, and he changes the words of the instructions of Abraham, showing him he's a zaken, he's an elder, he's so wise, and he creates a personal, emotional connection of family. That is the wisdom of God. So you see why these are 2 cases, why the Torah is so lengthy. We can learn so many good things from this ingenuity and the wisdom, the shrewdness of the Eved Eliezer. A 3rd case. In the entire long speech that he presents himself as the Eved of Avraham, he does not at all mention one of the limitations. Okay, I'm choosing you, Ari. You're the family of Lavan. And you have a lovely daughter, Rivka, who's an unbelievable, kind young girl, that she does more than the ordinary, watering 10 camels. We know what a tank, yesterday someone mentioned that our bus filled up with how many liters? Almost 200 liters, 180 liters with fuel, right? That's a big bus. He has a 400-liter tank. I can imagine, I don't know how many liters a camel holds, but I was told that he has a hunch. Is that right? His hunchback? A hump?
Yeah.
And he has an extra tank there for storing water.
Well,
Is that true?
depends on the model. Some of them got 1, some of them have 2.
Okay. In any event, what do I not tell you? I do not tell you that I'm prohibited in bringing Yitzchak to you. I don't even mention it. You read the entire section. That condition that Avram swore. Remember, the servant asked, what happens if she doesn't want to come? Can I bring him back? No, you're not allowed to bring him back. He's not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael. Why in this storytelling does Eliezer cover it up and not mention it whatsoever? Why? If you're the family, what might you just suggest to me, to the servant?
To take the daughters in marriage?
No, I'm asking for your daughter in marriage for my servant, for the son of my master, and I don't mention at all that I'm not allowed to bring him here.
Well, why?
Why can't you?
If I would mention it,
They would
you would
wanna
start
ask
asking
Yeah,
questions,
then it's
and you
like,
might say what?
What's wrong with him?
What's wrong with him?
Why
And you
can't
might
he
say, what might you urge or even demand?
to see him, to question
Beautiful,
him.
beautiful, beautiful. In other words, in the words of the Eved, what's not mentioned at all is the possibility that the son of the master, who's sitting now in Eretz Yisrael, will be asked to come to there. He doesn't mention it in order not to stir, to arouse, questioning, querying about this matter, and maybe you're arguing, you don't want to have it done.
Wait, why is it so prohibited to coming to...
So we explained that he's so holy, he can't leave this land.
Right.
He's
Right,
so
and
special.
where's Lavan living? Right now?
Aram Naharaim, about 600 kilometers northeast. The same Aram Naharaim. Remember the word Nahar? What is a Nahar? River. Naharaim, 2 rivers. Which 2? Tigris and Euphrates. Right? The Tigris. That's where Avram was born and grew up and came to the land of Israel at the age of 75. 60 plus years have transpired since Avraham Avinu's arrival.
So 135.
That's right, at least, if not more. He passes away at the end of the Parsha. We read it. So he's hoping that there's someone with good midot there and good attributes. Good attributes.
Wait, but
Yes.
why? So back to the problem of not mentioning it. If there's a solid, viable reason for Yitzhak not to leave not to arrive, it's so he can't leave the land. He's so holy. Well, surely that's a good thing. He's so holy. Like, sure, take my daughters. I want them to marry a holy man.
This is spirit.
Why not just?
You're
why not
talking
just
about a
tell
nice
them?
family here in Yerushalayim, but we're talking about crooked people. That serve idolatry. They're not interested in holiness. They're interested in some money. They're interested in a good life, physically, materialistically speaking. They're not on your wavelength whatsoever, thinking about holiness and spirituality, whatever. Okay, when I was invited to the Shabbat Chatan prior to the marriage of one of my best friends, and married this this daughter of the Rosh Yeshiva, of my Rosh Yeshiva. And I was one of his best friends in the yeshiva. And the Kala's, his family came. And I noticed from a distance, after the morning service ended, I went to one of the classrooms to do some learning. I knew the Kiddush would be delayed, this and that. And I saw from the window a young lady walking her grandfather in a wheelchair at the distance of about 40 or 50 meters. And that caught my eye. I saw some holiness in it. I thought, wow. A young lady taking care of her handicapped grandfather. That caught my eye. I said, wow, if I can marry such a woman who's so kind. What happened 3 months later?
Did you?
I married her.
Wow.
I married her. And I was looking for holiness, but that's because I got my education from Machon Meir and then the Yeshiva Beit El where I was studying. But these people out there so far away, they're not interested in this whatsoever.
If I'm not mistaken, the only thing that Lavan is good about is his name. That's what I heard.
And not what?
Lavan.
We're going to see. No, the Torah doesn't tell us more about his name, but we certainly see here what he's interested in. I want to share with you right now the clear strategy of the Shaliach. Okay, he arrives after hundreds of kilometers of traveling. As you see here, please open up in chapter 24. And he arrives to a place where there's water outside the town, correct? Where are we? In verse 11. By the way, Avram's house is wealthy. He loads up 10 Mercedes-Benz, whatever, 10 Gemalim, and on it he has a lot of wealth. And of course, this is wealth to make an impression or even to buy and acquire a young lady. And he arrives to Ir Nachor, the city of Nachor. Nachor, remember, is the brother of Avram Avinu. And there he parks his Gemalim in verse 11. Notice where? El Be'er Hamayim. By a well of water. At the time of what?
Evening.
Evening. Towards the evening. It's no longer hot. The girls are coming out. They need water for laundry. They need water for cooking. And they're coming to draw water. Le'et Tzeit HaShoavot. And by there, the slave opens up with a prayer in verses 12, 13, and on. But he claims he's buying Ein Hamayim. You see the word Ein Hamayim in verse 13. Ein. Ayin Yud Nun. Yesterday, we went to a place called Ein Gedi. Ein Gedi. The spring of Gedi. So he comes and finds up, he's at a place where, number one, there is a spring, an Amayan, but there's also a Be'er. Okay, there's a Be'er Maim, a well of water. People lower the what is it called? The bucket, pitcher, whatever, and they bring up water. That's the presence where he is right now. And this is a place where shepherds and girls come out here. Everyone knows one another. This is a famous place for water supply, right? We don't have plumbing like we have today. And this would be a daily place of meeting to get water and bring it back to your particular village.
Right, so there's a well and a spring.
Excellent. Many people don't notice. We see clearly in verse 11, then in 13, a be'er amayim and Ein Amayim. And there he opens up with his prayer there. The time of day is very special. Young girls are coming out to draw water as the end of the heat comes. And here, who appears? Someone known? Do people know this Eved? With his 10 camels? Yes or no? He's a stranger. He's arrived for first time. Okay? He arrives with 10 camels. Is it noticeable? 10 Mercedes-Benz, of course it's noticeable. And they're loaded. They're loaded with sacks of goodness. I don't know, fruits of the land, jewelry, spices. We don't know exactly, but all the tuv, all the goodness of Eretz Canaan under the great wealth of Avram Avinu. And here's the guy that's arrived. He's an Eved that's been sent to do this mission. We're assuming it's about 500-600 kilometers. Okay, we hope he had a good pillow to sit on. Otherwise, he has a lot of blisters and you know where. Correct? And he's looking for a wife for the son of his master, Yitzchak. And he's told, only go to my artzi, my land, my moladiti, my birthplace, and acquire for me, for my son Yitzchak. My dear friends, we see that the Eved understands clearly the purpose of the visit, the objective of the visit, to bring a wife from maybe one of the family members that are still living here. He left, like you said, to Hirsch more than 60 years ago, 65 years ago. And this Eved is very well learned and very well experienced in all features of his master. He knows Avram Avinu like the back of his head. He knows everything, what he is and what he stands for, and what is the major importance of this matter. And therefore, he's the top Eved in the house. He's a manager. He is an elder statesman, and he's the servant. And we said his name is not even mentioned. He's totally submitted to the will of his master. What kind of wife is he going to be looking for? He knows. Right now, he's not going to be looking that if she goes to Sunday morning mass or not. That's not the point right now. Everyone here is idolaters, but he's going to be looking for a trait, a personal character trait that'll be mat'im, suitable for his master. Like Moshe and I spoke yesterday on the bus ride coming back. You can't marry yourself. You can't marry a woman who's just like you. People think mistakenly, I have to find someone just like me. You don't want to marry someone like you.
I couldn't stand someone just like me.
Thank you for sharing. You have to marry someone that's going to compliment you. That's going to help you rise, and you're going to help her rise and become a better person. Okay? And he's considering in his mind, we don't see the thoughts in his mind, but it's clear that when he's making his prayers, what does he say in verse 14? Let's read it. In his prayer, Vayanara, and it'll be that this young girl, Asher Omar Ela, that I'm going to say to her, Hatina Chadech ve'eshteh. Okay, apparently it's from Texas. Sure, she's not pleased. She was very polite. Hatina, tilt your kad, your pitcher. Ve'eshteh, I'll drink. If he says that to her, V'amra, and if she's going to say shte, drink, V'gam gimalecha ashke, and you know what? I'll also water your what? Your camels. Then it's proof. It'll be proof to your servant, to Yitzchak, that this is the woman that's going to do chesed with my master. Which attribute in his prayer is he looking for? Kindness, kind-heartedness. Hebrew? Chesed. Ba'alat chesed. The master of chesed. I want you to stop and think for a moment. We discussed this, although briefly. Each of the three avot, patriarchs, excel in all attributes, but they specifically excel in one specific attribute. Avram is noted throughout the Tanakh as chesed. I'm skipping. Yaakov is known as the equilibrium, the balance between fear and love, between chesed and fear of God. There's some balance between that. Yitzchak, however, we see in his behavior is passive. He is brought to the Akedah. He has a shidduch, a match brought for him. We don't see him in activities like Avram Avinu. And he's called here in the Chumash and later in King David and Tehillim, Pachad Yitzchak. Pachad Yitzchak. The attribute of fear. He's full of fear of godliness. Not fear of just punishment. There's a higher fear, as Rav Kook writes in the book of Arot HaTshuva. There's an uplifting fear. I see the mightiness. I see the greatness, the expanse of God. Yesterday when we were hiking in that brook, We saw the mountains, we saw the blue skies, we saw the ibex, we saw the pools of water yesterday, we saw the greatness of God. There's a type of yirah, Rav Kook writes, that's called yirat haromimut. A yirah that is miromemut, that exalts me, that uplifts me. And it instills fear of godliness. That is Yitzchak Avinu. He's not a doer, he's not an initiator, to goer. He's like, he shows his distance. He's in full of fear. There's often a setback for someone that's just full of fear, and that he doesn't take the initiative. He doesn't go out and do things. He's likely to be so careful that he might not perform what has to be performed. And therefore, the Torah didn't just command us red lines, 365. Mitzvot lotas, say negative commandments. The Torah gave us how many positive commandments? 248, that's right. 248 positive mitzvot. Why? The more you fear, you develop this. The more you don't do, the more you don't violate, you develop a sense of fear of God. The more you do the positive mitzvot, that promulgates the love of Hashem. It causes you to even go further and have more love to do. The more you love something, entity, if it's a wife, your land, your country, your Torah, the more you're willing to do for it. So the Torah, in God's great wisdom, gives us this fine balance of doing and not doing. And that it performs or accelerates the development of Ahava and Yirah, love and fear. We have to have both. Yitzchak, though, is full of fear. What kind of woman would be ideal for a Yitzchak Avinu who's full of fear?
Brave woman.
Brave woman. What else?
Scary woman.
Scary woman. We say we don't want to marry ourselves.
But he's scared.
He's scared. He's full of
And
fear of God.
She's scary.
I'm asking. I don't think we're going to accept that as a good answer. What kind of woman?
An active woman.
An active woman. Doing what?
Doing all kinds of chesed and
Chesed.
outgoing activities.
This is the house of the patriarchs.
Right, so she-
These are the building blocks of the nation of Israel. From them we learn what's inside the hearts and souls of our patriarchs and matriarchs. That is the innate DNA, the divine DNA that we're going to find ourselves throughout all the generations. And therefore, he keenly understands that the opposite, the complementer of pachad, will be a person that does chesed. And he says, you know what? He's testing himself in his faith in God. If I go to a girl and I ask her, could you please give me something to drink? If she responds with something astonishing. He's not just looking for, a nice girl. Can you give me a sip? Yeah, I'll give you a sip. Right? Is that the word? Is that the terminology they use in England?
Yes.
Sorry, no, I was talking about something else.
Sip.
That's not the word used. I thought it was the word used. In my time, it was-
Sip of water, just a small.
okay. If he asks for a sip of water, and she says, I'll also give you camels. Camels. That's extraordinary. That's like above nature. Tens upon tens of liters each camel fills up. Multiply that by that's hundreds of liters. Hundreds of liters. Going back, filling it up and bringing out. And he's watching. And by the way, who is alongside the Eved? He has a lot of attendants. He has Avadim. And they're all watching. And you would have thought she could have said, why don't you just ask one of your attendants to help you? She doesn't say that. Or she doesn't say, my father said I shouldn't speak with strangers. This young girl sees an opportunity for chesed. She jumps on it like she's finding booty after war. And she's so happy to do chesed, but not just any chesed, extraordinary chesed. So we see that the thought process and the ingenuity of the servant in his prayer, setting up a situation that this will prove, we see the keenness that he's having here. So when he, the Eved, with the entire entourage, the 10 camels and the many attendants, and they're right now at this field in this area, next to the Ma'ayan, the spring, and next to the Bear, the well, he is now strategizing how to detect what type of girl might come and do it. Of all the girls that are carrying pitchers of water here on their shoulders, he's going to ask just a girl if she's willing to, tilt your cod and give me a sip, which is how much trouble and toil is tilting. You know, I'm going to bring a mug, and she's tilting. What is she? What is she doing? And if she says, "Vigam gimalecha ashke," and also I'm willing to what? To water your camels. This will be a basis, a certain basis to continue to try to reveal if she is the right girl, if she has this attribute of chesed, which is so gigantic. Because if she's going to say that to water all these camels, that's not a little toiling. That's laboring and laboring. It'll take an hour, 2 hours of doing this. Who knows? And you know what? For all of you that think or go according to an opinion that this young girl is only 3 years old, as we maybe learn in the next parsha, the Rashbam and some other simplistic commentators think otherwise. But you're trying to think or portray yourself as a young boy, and you know, even if your mom or dad asked you at the age of 5 or 6 to throw out the trash, you would probably complain and say, "Come on, you know, I can't do it," or "We're spoiled brats," or this or that. In village life, in biblical times, young children performed very heavy tasks. They were trained for that. They were used to doing it every day. They didn't have the automation or luxuries of what we have
They
today.
had to do chores from like
All types of chores in the house, of cooking and laundering and showing and doing this.
People did that not so long ago, 100 years ago,
Yeah,
even.
maybe before plumbing.
Yeah.
Maybe. So if you're not aware of it, understand that people are capable, but she is extraordinary. So we're going to stop here, B'ezrat Hashem, for today, and we'll decide tomorrow if we're going to continue this. We're going to do our Tanakh show. Probably going to do Joshua. We can
Mention the stuff. Okay.
Have a
I'll
birthday.
show you. I want to show you how to do it. So
Shalom.
there's-
Have a nice day today, John.